What do you mean I'm a monster? Well, just that, unfortunately. It appears that your monstrous lack of respect for your own countrymen and women has altered your genetic makeup somewhat. How the physiognomists among us are having a field day with some of the opposition. All right, well, we all know that physiognomy qualifies as a pseudoscience at best. The idea that somehow we can determine a person's character from the bumps on their head or the size and angle of their nostrils is a silly one. The ancient Greeks thought highly of it, but it fell out of favour in the Middle Ages, only to be resurrected somewhat surreally by, of all things, a Swiss poet. Recently, however, it has resurfaced in the area of machines learning facial recognition. Now, screwy or not, we're going to swing with the ancient Greeks on this one and assume, for the sake of argument, that we can read indications of people's personality traits from their physical appearance. First up, Count Dracula, born into fiction in 1897 and still scaring the bejesus out of plenty of people, both on celluloid and digital film. Whatever digital film looks like. Now, there is, of course, a Hungarian connection to this one, given that as early as the second sentence in the book, Budapest gets a boost from Mr. Stoker. Budapest seems a wonderful place. Right on! That said, Bram slips off the rails slightly a few sentences further in, referring somewhat confusingly to a dish called paprika hendu, mentioning that it was, of all things, thirsty. Of course, he's talking about paprika's chicken. I have no idea who Hendel is or was, nor for that matter do I know why chicken would be thirsty. But it's not important. The point is that the novel is set in Transylvania, an area inhabited by Hungarians. So it seems most appropriate that our first monster is also a Hungarian. Say hello to Sándor Count Spatula Stanislaw, mayor of the 18th district of Budapest. Now, who does he remind you of? It's easy, isn't it? He's a dead ringer for none other than Count Dracula himself. I'm going to go on record as saying the hair is the thing. It's as though he walked into the barber's, saw a magazine advertising horror films and said, "I'll have the Drac." Now, as we all know, Count Dracula was a vampire, a leading figure in a gang of loonies who wandered about the place, hiding from the sun, turning themselves into bats, of all things, and drinking the blood of virgins. Fun, normal stuff like that. So what similarities exist between Dracula and Spatula? Dracula was, or is, depending on how deeply you believe fictional tales, a vampire. But after a good few minutes checking on the internet, I couldn't find anything that stated definitively that Spatula is a vampire. That might mean he's innocent of the charges, but it might just be a reminder of the power of vampire Freemasons. I'll let you make your own mind up on that one. Second point, Dracula is a Hungarian. So is Spatula. Back of the net. Although it's also true that they aren't the only two Hungarians known to man, which does reduce the hitting power of that coincidence. Point 3. Dracula is scared shitless of the sun. Spatula doesn't appear to be scared of the sun at all. In various photos he can be seen standing in the daylight. Maybe he's harder than Dracula. Maybe he's wearing an incredibly, unbelievably high-factor sunscreen to beat the system. Or maybe, just maybe, like Snesley Wipes from the Blade films, Spatula is actually a daywalker, a vampire who can wander about and go on sunbeds to the obvious envy of old-school vampires like Dracula, who have to mosey about all pasty-faced, hiding in the shadows of trees and tall buildings and stuff. Point 4. Dracula belongs to a gang of loonies. Aha! Now we're getting closer to something. Spatula is a man who jumped ship from the socialists, loonies to a man, and joined the Democratic Coalition, a bunch of nutters controlled by Fleto Djurchan. Slam dunk for that one, I feel. Now, as regards drinking blood and flapping bats, there seems to be nothing on the internet at all regarding what Spatula's beverage of choice is. But the bat thing is very, very interesting. The coronavirus is a zoonotic disease which somehow passed from bats into humans. Now, Spatula's connection to the coronavirus is something he's made very clear. As a member of the lunatic left-wing fringe that is DK, he's against vaccinations which aren't rubber-stamped by bureaucrats in offices in Brussels. As such, he posted on his Facebook account that he sent back several hundred Chinese vaccines from his Budapest district as there was no demand for them. Of course, that turned out to be a barefaced lie. His office was predictably inundated with calls from people living in the district who pointed out that nobody had asked them and that they would happily receive the Chinese vaccination as an alternative to becoming seriously ill and potentially dying whilst waiting for some sort of vaccine to dribble down from the EU's fractured vaccination machine. That's got to be a dead giveaway. Count Spatula.